guys. So I haven't done a video in a couple weeks. I'm trying to be more frequent. As you know, I film at work. Ugh, curly hair. I swear to God, look at that. Okay. So today's video is going to be about suicide assessments because I know one of the biggest things that a lot of people have fears about, not just like their first time ever being with a client, but the first time they ever have to do a suicide assessment. So I'm in the state of Florida and we have what's called the Baker Act here. Some of you guys in some states, like up north, I know in Ohio, I think it was called like a 72 hold or something like that. Like basically you get hold for 72 hours. And so what that is for anybody that has suicidal ideation or suicidal attempts or homicidal ideations. A suicide assessment, there's multiple different ones that you can do, but honestly, you just need to know pretty much the basics. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. It actually can be put within your sessions because sometimes a client may present one way in the beginning of the session, and then as they start going into details, especially because I work with people that are victims of trauma, sometimes it can start going into suicidal ideation type conversations, and although they might not actually want to kill themselves, you still want to do a suicide assessment and a safety plan. So with that being said, so a suicide assessment is basically whenever you're talking to a client, you want to ask them, very frankly, have you thought about killing yourself? Now, I know some people are like, oh my God, if you say that, then you're going to, like, that person might want to kill themselves just off a suggestion. Well, I'm here to kind of debunk that because that's not true at all. In fact, very rarely is just asking somebody if they want to kill themselves or harm themselves, is that going to put something in their mind that was not already there? So kind of erase that fear out of your head because you need to be an effective therapist. And in order to be an effective therapist, you want to make sure that your clients are safe from others and safe from themselves. So you want to be very frank and ask them, do you want to kill yourself? Have you thought about killing yourself? If they've answered yes to any of those, then you want to proceed with, okay, do you have a plan? And so if they're like, oh, well, not really, okay, not really means that there could possibly be a plan. So you want to continue on and you want to ask if there's a means. So basically, a means is like, I have a couple clients that are cutters. So the means might be like, oh yeah, well, I have like a razor blade, or I have a knife, or I have some other sharp object. And I have it in my room, or it's in the garage and I know where it's at, and I've been really thinking about maybe that's how I would do it. You'll have some other clients that will go, yeah, or kind of like not too long ago. You don't want to listen to the not too long ago, because I had a client the other night that was like, yeah, not too long ago. I haven't really thought about it recently. And I said, okay, what's not too long ago for you? Because for me, not too long ago could be like a month ago. No, not too long ago for her was 2 days prior to our session. So it's very important that anytime your clients say anything, that you seek clarification and you don't just put your own definitions on their statements, because what you might think is has a different definition, they're using it a different way. So never make assumptions, especially in this field. You always want to ask for clarification to gain understanding. So anytime you have a client that does want to harm themselves, and the protocol in my facility is, because currently I'm not licensed, is that you want to make sure that you get a licensed clinician involved. And so like we have numbers that we can dial from in our office, or we can email the licensed therapist that's on duty. At this point, yeah, if you want to make it discreetly that you're trying to get another therapist in to kind of assess the situation before you do any type of like psychiatric hold, But you want to keep the client safe. So even if they do know that you are getting somebody else involved because of the statements that they're saying, that's quite all right too, because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to shy away from it and act like, oh my gosh, I don't want this person to end up in a psychiatric hold because, like, oh my God, they're going to be so mad at me and I don't want my client to be mad. Okay, well, would you rather your client harm themselves or kill themselves or be mad at you? I mean, like, let's really put this into perspective, right? So, anytime you have a client that wants to harm themselves or has thought about suicidal ideation and they have a plan and a means to do it, that's the time where you really want to involve another clinician and make sure that if it is a psychiatric hold that needs to be done, that it's not you making the ultimate decision. You want to make sure that you have like your supervisor or somebody else involved, because it has to be a licensed individual that's making the final call. And 9 times out of 10, you want to make sure that you're covering all your bases, right? um, because you are, like, especially if you're doing your practicum or your internship, or even if you're watching this and you're newly licensed, you want to make sure that your insurance is covering you and your licensure is not in jeopardy, because you don't want to Baker Act somebody or put them on a psychiatric hold when really it's overkill. Like in Florida, oh my gosh, I've heard so many stories of my clients coming in. Like I get quite a few clients that have been Baker acted, and most of the time it comes from nurses that are not fully educated on suicidal ideation or attempts, and they have a tendency to want to over Baker Act individuals. Like there was one guy that was in my office and he got Baker acted, and I would have never Baker acted him, first of all, because the nurse in the hospital, like he was getting like some other medical treatment that had nothing to do with anything related to suicide. And he was like, the nurse had asked him, like, well, have you ever thought about, harming yourself? And he's like, no, but I have had thoughts of like, ugh, like my life is just such a drain. Like sometimes wish I wasn't here. Now you'll have clients say that, and I'm sure you've said that too, where it's like, oh my God, like, ugh, I don't want to be here. It's not like you don't want to be like in life. It's like, okay, I'm kind of just at my wits' end. Like I would love to just do a mental checkout and have some woosah or a little vacation or something to just like escape mentally if possible. And that's basically what he was saying. Now I did have a couple clients where it was definitely a need because they had either self-harmed themselves or were publicly displaying behaviors that warranted a psychiatric hold. Like one guy had, what was it? He had got in the ocean and had stolen a Coast Guard boat because he was trying to get home. So he swam down the coastline. Like it was very bizarre. Typically, a lot of my clients that are bipolar do have a history of being Baker acted or some type of psychiatric hold. If it's not like in Florida, it's a different state, because when they go into manic episodes, they're not thinking straight, and a lot of the behaviors that they show are just out of the norm so much that it's hard not to, do something about it. And of course, when they come out of that manic state, they're frustrated, they're irritable, and they're just angry because they're like, I didn't do anything wrong, because their mindset was one way during that day that really made it seem like what they were doing was okay. And it's not the case at all. They'll try and explain things like it and normalize it basically. And it's like, okay, that's not really normal to behave like taking Coast Guard boats or, walking in the ocean with all your clothes on and it's like 100 degrees on, and like you just walk in with your shoes and your like pants and your full clothes and then get naked and walk out. Like just stuff like that you're like, that there's something going on. There are some clients that I do work with that are schizophrenic and they have voices or delusions that tell them to kill themselves. And, if they're not on the right medications and with a combination of therapy, that can be detrimental to their health. And so those are times where you might have a client that either comes to you because of they're being released from a psychiatric hold, or that in your office that might be a point where there may need to be an intervention of a psychiatric hold. But bringing up the idea of suicide, never be fearful. We do have some clients that have been Baker acted before, and they are so nervous to say anything that might lead to a Baker Act that most of the time when I'm asking questions, especially like we have the PHQ-9, which is a depression assessment, and they always think like, oh my God, is this the assessment that's going to get me Baker acted? So I really make sure that I explain to clients like, no, this is just so that I can understand for your diagnosing, what your depression levels, like your depression is not going to get you Baker acted. What will get you Baker acted if you sit in my office and you talk about like, yeah, when I leave here, I want to kill myself, or, you're a client that suffers from schizophrenia and the voices are telling you to kill yourself when you leave my office, like certain situations like that. Now, there are some clients that will lie in therapy and you're never going to know, and they might harm themselves, they might kill themselves. I haven't had anybody that's done like that has killed themselves, and I hope I never do run into that. But the work that I'm in, you know, I can't ever say never, that's never going to happen, unfortunately. I really hope it doesn't, but, you're not in control of the destiny of your client. So even if you do have a client that does harm themselves and it does lead to the ending of their life, I really want you guys to not blame yourself. If you've taken all the proper procedures and you've done everything based on the policy and the protocol of the centers that you're located at, then it's easier said than done, but just try not to embody that guilt, because that's going to eat at you and it's not going to make you a productive clinician for your next client or clients, right? And so basically, you want to make sure that you're doing the suicide assessment as when you're doing the intake process. So I know, like one of my older videos, I talked about the bio intake, and a part of that is asking, do you want to harm yourself? Have you had any suicidal ideations? Have you had any suicide attempts? Do you have memory issues? Do you have delusions? Do you have hallucinations? These are all things that could lead to somebody wanting to harm themselves, especially the hallucinations, or, hearing audio hallucinations that are telling them to harm themselves. I do have a couple of teen clients that do cut, so I do psychoeducational parts within my therapy session that really educates them on self-destructive behavior. I do hand them, not really like big on handing clients worksheets, but sometimes in order for them to really understand self-destructive behaviors and alternative coping mechanisms, you really want it to be in print form so that you can read it to them and they can have something to take home to reference. Self-destructive behaviors are very common in teenagers. Sometimes you'll have a teenager that, or any client, but just because like a lot of my clients that fall under the category of self-destructive behavior just so happen to be teenagers. Now I have clients all the way up to 60, but really trying to help them find different coping mechanisms and really understanding their triggers, which I hope you guys have watched my other video about triggers. It really will help them understand why they get into those sad and depressed moods that might make them want to harm themselves. Some of them have learned to cut different places other than their arms, like their thighs, or some place that if they're undressing isn't going to be as noticeable. So you really want to make sure that you have the guardian or the parent that is involved aware, and anytime we do a safety plan, they have to be in the room in order to sign off, and then a copy is handed to them. So just keep that in the forefront of your mind, that you really want to make sure that you're not scared to do a suicide assessment, because it's really not something that you should be scared of. But I do understand, because before I started, I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to remember the steps? But it really, like, when you come out of the realm of just doing like all of the like the skits and stuff like that where you're like, oh my god, like what am I supposed to say, like do you want to kill yourself, like no. So in a session, if a client is, telling me some things about how they've been really sad and depressed and they've been isolating themselves and they're teary-eyed, yeah, that's a point where you can go, you know have you been thinking about killing yourself? Have you been thinking about harming yourself? Do you do any self-destructive behaviors? Like one girl, she'll purposefully like ram herself into like objects in order to bruise herself. So it's all these things that you really have to be mindful of when you're in a session, because you just want to make sure that you're doing all the checks and balances with your clients, because at the end of the day, you really sometimes are the only person that really knows this part of the client, either because they hide it from the rest of their family and friends and the outside world, or that they really don't have anybody that they can talk to. So being proactive and not being scared to really confront your client. Like I confront my clients a lot in sessions about multiple things, but especially about any type of suicidal ideation or suicide attempts, because it's important. Um, there's multiple ones, like I said earlier, that are out there, but the main thing is to don't be scared, first of all, to ask them. And you can sometimes I'll ask in the beginning of the session, at the end of the session, depending on the context of the session, because you want to make sure that when a client's leaving your office, especially if they've been teary-eyed and really overly emotional about if they're doing like their trauma narrative or something like that, that you do check-ins with your clients. It's important to make sure that you're checking in with your client and that you're not scared to do it, because they're really relying on you to get the help that they need. And at the end of the day, you are the professional, right? And so a part of that is having the self-confidence to really be okay with asking. And most of the time, the clients, they know that they need the help. So if you have a client that gets mad that you are asking that, I would make that cause for alarm. I've asked so many clients, I can't even, like, oh my gosh, so many clients, probably over like 30 or 40 clients, and I haven't had one client yet get mad at me. Most of the time, most clients are gonna like go into over explaining, like, no, I haven't thought about harming myself since I was a teenager, and they might be like a 40-year-old adult, or no, I used to do that when I was younger. Take a whole bunch of pills, and I would never do that. And you also want to make sure that you're asking them in the safety plan. So the safety plan is going to go into like what their triggers are, what their thoughts are that they have when they get into that mindset, what their mood is like. So their mood might be sad, depressed, angry, irritable. Their thoughts might be about like a past relationship or past traumas. And then you want to kind of ask them, like, what are some of the objects or things that you have used or would use to harm yourself? So that could be medications, that could be knives, that could be, one client of mine had the voices tell her to get in her car and drive off the bridge. So these are just things that you need to put in their safety plan. And anytime I do a safety plan, I put it in whatever they say, I put in quotes. So their safety plan is a process that you ask them and that you put in quotes, because it's not about what you have to say about what their triggers are. It's about them verbalizing it, because you hand it to them. And so by handing it to them, that means that they're responsible to look at their triggers, and you also put down what are some alternative things that they can do. Like some people say, oh, I might want to go for a walk or listen to music or paint or draw or do some types of arts and crafts or use stuff like that. And then you also want to make sure when you get in this headset, who is your support system? Who are two people that you can reach out to? And so sometimes people might say, oh, I can reach out to my mom, my sister, my friend, my cousin, my aunt, whoever, and so you want to make sure that you're getting all of those things down. And then as far as when you have clients that are using objects to hurt themselves, you need to ask them, in what ways will these things be removed from your home or removed from any area in which you can gain access? Now, it's easier said than done when you have Well, it's easier to do essentially when you have clients that are younger, or clients that live with other people that can really step in and like lock up knives, hide different medications and stuff like that. But when you have a client that lives on their own, it's a little bit harder. So it's like, no, I'm really going to hold you accountable. And I do a follow up when I see the clients the next day. That's why it's so important to really get your case notes together too, because although they shouldn't go into every little detail, there's certain things that you really need to put in there, and making sure that the client has removed all items from their home or their access where they could use things to harm themselves. Like, people are like, oh my God, I had to hide every kitchen knife. Well, if the client is using kitchen knives to harm themselves, then yes. But if they're not, then no. I mean, like, not everybody that wants to harm themselves is using a kitchen knife. So just keep that in mind. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, concerns, ideas, or anything like that. But for now, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.